South Alaska.
What?
Where are you, Claire?
Alaska. On the way to Alaska up the inland waterway. We're just, probably a few hundred miles from Sitka.
Blown off the logs with high pressure water. And on the logging, we're going to see a very large one. Form of housing that the logging camps use. And if a lot loggers go to an area called
now around this area we have the Haida, Tlingit, and Tsimshian native tribes. Okay? But Tsimshian isn't as prevalent in this park as
Wow.
In the center is a Haida heraldic pole. This pole would stand in front of the clan house. It would box because to make one, you would take a single plank of red or yellow cedar, score it in 3 places where the corners are to be, and then through a process of steaming and bending, a box shape is formed. The ends are attached with spruce root and a top and bottom put on. They were used for utilitarian purposes such as storage of clothing, utensils, or dried food. They could also be used for cooking.
Okay, thank you. Seid ihr fertig? Gleich?
Gleich. Nee, wir nicht.
So where are you?
We're coming into Juneau
Okay.
with all our
Oh. Okay, we're in Juneau, Alaska. That's the boat we came on. Regent Sea. Just a shot of the harbor here. Just arrived. Kind of a unique place. Tour buses are going to see the Mendenhall Glacier. Lots of rain up here. Terrible day yesterday, couldn't do anything. Couldn't see anything. Principal mode of transportation in Alaska, the float plane. Thousands of them around here. This is the Mendenhall Glacier. It's raining and you can't see diddly. We're gonna go get closer to it. Tell me. Okay, this is a Mendenhall Glacier. Crappy day again. Lots of rain, not too clear, but huge, huge glacier. Quite impressive.
I just had to take my jacket off road and get this out.
Funny fish. Bonnie fish laying its eggs. Swimming upstream. Good size, bunch of dead ones. Okay, the Skagway, we're just going on a 3.5-hour train ride. Take in the sights. Got some sunshine today for about the first time on this trip. Hopefully we get to see something. Folks.
It's slowing down at about this time. There's not as much water coming off of the mountains, but it still is a rapid down there. Which is quite remarkable if you consider the total number of men. There's a pipeline that spans the width of that river as well. That pipeline was built during the Second World War, and at that time it was used for fighter fuel. Fuel would be pumped up from Skagway all the way up to Whitehorse, the capital of the Yukon Territory, to be used in fighter planes. Now, during the second, Whitehorse spanned a period of 6 North America with an average grade of 2.6%, climbing 141 feet per mile. At this particular point, the average grade is about 3.9%, and we're averaging about 206 feet per mile. And the reason why this was the most difficult part of the journey was because it was the steepest and rockiest section of the White Pass Trail. And from the White Pass summit, the next 20 miles after the summit,
They'll both jump off.
if you look all the way back over your left-hand shoulder, inside passage, as well as the Lincoln, along the hellish trail, strung together in trains of 20, each carrying up to 4,000 pounds of freight on their backs. These horses driven relentlessly to the summit. Their loads included lumber, knockdown boats, window frames, stoves, beds, machinery, boxes of general freight, and canned and dried food. The sharp edges of the wooden crates shifted with every step, causing abrasions and hip sores as big as a man's fist. When these horses faltered, they were killed by their owners and left lying in the trail's frozen sump holes and creek beds. Others were shot and pushed down the rocky inclines to lie legs up and spread-eagled in the snow, their ordeal over at last. These hideous pack trains were maintained by a constant supply of fresh horses from Seattle or Vancouver. Few of these animals survived more than 1 or 2 trips to the summit and beyond, and those that were not shot were left to starve, because no one would waste 10 cents worth of hay on a worn-out horse. Of the 3,800 pack horses that were taken north in 1897, only 30 survived. The rest of these horses died, leaving their flesh to rot and their bones to bleach in the summer sun.
Anybody would like it?
This bridge was built in 1901 and it was the tallest of its kind in the world. It's completely unsafe. Some of you may be disappointed that we're not going to be traveling over this bridge. But in 1969, a new bridge being hauled from Whitehorse to Skagway. Now when you come out of the other side of this tunnel, you're going to want to look over your left-hand shoulder because you'll be able to see all the way down Dead Horse Gulch. So this is when we come out on the other side of Thomas White, the Canadian Minister of the Interior, by William Ogilvie, who was a track surveyor for the Canadian government. Now, when you see this miles and lasts for hours on end, when the stampeders will be waiting for their turn, the train comes to a complete stop, the engines are going to disconnect, pull alongside of us on these set of parallel tracks, and then re-hook up at the end of the train, which will then become... I'll walk you through the seat exchange. And once we're here in Canada, we're not allowed to sell anything.
Down to get you yesterday, back up, you know. But I want to put that in when we evaluate this cruise. I want to. I was. Well, I'm sorry you had a great too. Well,
Okay, now there's a real chainsaw. Sitka, Alaska. This is Sitka. Getting ready to get on the boat and take off for Anchorage. Pretty little town. Fishing boats is going out.
Love to see those shirts. For only $55 a piece. Well, we got our whole uniform for that.
No, good. You'll get your money's worth. Look at how we take ice out there now.
Four big boats. About that high, you know. And they try to get up. I like that one. See, it's got you walk out in front. Guaranteed the same company built
Yeah, they do. Good old town.
Watch your way you get out.
No.
That would fall out mine. That would fall out mine.
I didn't know I have it written. Nick, I'll mail mine tomorrow. Yes, and we really saw it today, didn't we? A big old whale tail. Golly. And a kayak going by those little sea otters and stuff.
One of the other boats.
Eye level.
Flying over one of the waves.
I bet you $5 it is.
I don't want to fly.
Just leaving Sitka on our way to Anchorage. Take a couple of days to get there. Today's Wednesday, about noon. We'll be there Friday morning. The whales out there, quite a ways out. It's hard to see much up there. Went by a quail out there. There he comes. Great big bugger. About 40 feet long, they say.
Off the stern at about 7 o'clock, there are at least 2, possibly 3. They're staying right at the surface. They're blowing very, very visibly. One at about 1 mile distance. This is a tremendous opportunity.
But it's still, there's his tail.
There's his
But
tail.
it's still nothing. Yeah, this is nothing.
Hey.
We seem to have 3 distinct groups now going at about 10 o'clock, 11, splashing water furiously. There's about a dozen, maybe 20 of them out there now as they swim.
Taking a paddle aboard to go up into the glacier. Now, Columbia iceberg. We're still a few miles away from it. It's just out in the bay. Ice is floating out. It's kind of blue beach there and a lot of dirt. That's interesting. That's a big rock stuck in the iceberg there. Drug down with it.
So people are wondering what that ship is. They sailed out of Valdez and coming from...
This glacier would be
What?
this glacier. They smile.
I was gonna say it's kind of hard to smile when it's down. Can you hear it?
What did you say? It was 9 tenths below, 1 tenth above. Take this car off. That's that tidal pool that he talked about. It just hangs in there when the tide comes up. It takes it. Look at how high the glacier used to be along the mountain sides there. That's all scraped out.
Yeah.
She thought that was being polite. Take it.
You're the one that did all that
I
dancing.
heard that though.
I think so.
Reaching forward and it's terrific.
Because ahead of us now, as you can see, we have an ice field. And this ice field continues for about 4 miles of floating ice, which goes right back to the glacier's face, which is in the distance. The Great Nunatak Mountain is the mountain in the center of the Columbia Glacier. As you can see, the glacier comes in its main down on the left-hand side, but it also comes down over on the right-hand side. But that has receded quite a lot there, as you can see. You can actually see the silting along the side of the Great Nunatak Mountain. All that area that you see that is light limestone covering, that's where the glacier was. It's retreated back from where we are at this present moment. This is where the glacier rested from the point of view of the moraine from the left-hand side, where you can see that point there. And from there, the glacier was right up on the top of that. There was a height of about 250 feet. And there it was across. Now, that's where it was in 1974. Now, in those 20 years, the glacier has receded that fast to go all the way back to the face of it, which you can see see some light breaking colour in the distance there on the face of the glacier. That is continually calving and continually retreating. The moraine is a build-up of silt and rock that has been pushed down by the glacier over the centuries, and it was on this that the glacier rested. And as, of course, the ice came on the top and it fell over, then, of course, the icebergs formed. Now what has happened is, as the glacier has retreated, as it rested on that moraine, then, of course, it started to float with the water pressure underneath it, and therefore it started to calve quicker, and that's what it's been doing. And so this is what you see, the remnants of all this ice. However, this moraine at one point is shallow only to about 9 feet, and consequently the ice, when it comes to high tide here, and high tide in this area can be as much as 15 to 20 feet, this lifts the icebergs over the moraine and deposits them on this side, and down they float, of course, through the sound, gradually dissolving until they reach the sea. But they have to be pretty big to reach the sea. These icebergs at this present time where we are not really all that large, as icebergs go. But it's certainly very clear here today. We very seldom get this close to this moraine. We're usually back by about another 1.5 miles. But the distance, as I say, to the face of the glacier is around about 4.5 miles from where we are at this present moment. This glacier goes back 44 miles. Well, it does do from where we are at this point. The moraine is about 0.5 mile ahead of us there, and from there it goes back into the Chugach mountain range, which is what you're looking at now, for about 44 miles. The area of the glacier in its entirety is 440 square miles, which is the same as the city of Los Angeles, out of interest. The glaciers, of course, form right at the very tops of these mountains. They form, of course, from the sea, from the moisture that comes down as snow. And then, of course, the snow compacts and gets heavier and heavier, gradually forcing it into a neva, or a corn snow, which is like grabbing some snow in your hand and closing it quickly, and then opening your hand up. It's not exactly a solid, it's more like a jello. Well, that's neva. And then as it goes deeper down and the weight continues to come on the top, it then forms crystals. And from crystals, it forms itself into ice, forcing the air out, of course. And that is why glacier ice is the heaviest of all compounded ice. About 50 pounds per cubic foot is the weight of glacier ice. Then, of course, it's gravity that pulls it down the mountain, and then nothing could stop it. All these magnificent valleys you see have all been formed by glaciers over the years, and since that time, the Ice Age, the mini-Ice Age, has, of course, retreated. Most of these glaciers are continually retreating now. Very few are actually advancing. This is, of course, due to global warming, and so this would continue on, one would expect. This glacier has moved back very fast. In fact, in 1958, it moved back 3,000 feet in a matter of 35 days. The depth of the ice, when you look up into the valley there, where the glacier is, they reckon, when they tested it last, was about 1,000 feet thick. But it's interesting to note that if this ice was to clear out, if the moraine was to break down, which it won't, but if it did, and all this ice could escape and come out when the wind comes up and the current turns it out, if they could get rid of all this ice, and then we would see the glacier retreating right up close to it, this ship would be going up to where, as far as you could see into that glacier by the year 2020, to give you some idea of the speed of the retreat of this glacier. However, they can advance just as quickly and turn around as they retreat. Nobody really knows why they do it. Geologists have studied glaciers for years. Of course, when you get a tremendous amount of snowfall, this of course aids the pressure to send down the glacier. But you get the high snowfalls here. Last year it was 550 inches of snow landed at the top of the glacier. Valdez, which is 26 miles away, over on our starboard side, up the arm, got 212 inches of snow this year. Think about that. But the glacier here got over 500. And this, although it gets this amount of snow every year up there, it still retreats. And so there we go. The icebergs that you see here are not very blue today, but sometimes they are blue, and this is because of a reflection. It's not really blue at all. What you're looking at is all the colours of the spectrum hit the ice, and then it reflects blue back, because for some reason it will not accept it. And so this is why some of the icebergs appear blue as they do. The darker the blue, the older the ice, so they say. These icebergs, you know, here, as I say, are pretty small. You're looking at about 1/9 above the water. The rest of the volume of the iceberg is below it. When you get into salt water, more salt water, of course, you see about 1/7 above, because the salt water is more buoyant, of course, and therefore the iceberg stands further out of the water. But the content of water here is about 70% salt, 30% fresh water, because obviously the glacier is all fresh water. In fact, of course, when the moisture comes from the sea originally, eventually, of course, the glacier returns to nature back what made it. When you see an iceberg turn over, that's because the actual disintegration of the berg is more underwater than on top. This is done by the salt penetration, and also by, of course, the water being above freezing. And you move the ship very slowly because